Chris from Leisure Games. Disclaimer, these are all my own opinions. These are all my own viewpoints, and you're seeing the nice background of my kitchen again, like usual right now. So tonight, sporting a good old D20. Sure, it's actually a gift from my wife. You can kind of see. First up, I'm just going to do a quick news roundup tonight in this one with what's been going on, the big events I see kind of going on in the big board game world. Splashes, events, things you might not know about, things you might know about, things that I think are just worth noting. So that being said, let's get into it. First up tonight is actually just something that had been on my radar for a while. It'd been sort of incognito, hanging out in the background. Riot Games, League of Legends, those guys, those same guys, Mechs and Minions, one of the most overproduced, well-priced game at the same time. Same guys who did that, they just put out their new game today, all in one quick flourish. They said, okay, embargo lifted, it's on sale, here you go, Tellstones. Personally, I watched the video about 2 minutes before the embargo was lifted on their how to play. It was like a 4-minute video, so take a look at it if you haven't. And then, of course, I made the mistake of going over to Reddit, where someone had posted it shortly thereafter. And initially, though, Reddit is not nice to things like this, so it was getting thrown down. Oh, this is just 7 stones on a sheet, and how can everybody not just remember, anyone with a halfway decent memory, know what the places of 7 different little symbols are in a row? How could anyone not know that? So today I learned that Reddit is easily memorizing randomization of 5 random to 7 random symbols. Personally speaking, though, I ordered it. I think it looks great. I think it's a quick, simple game to play with my wife. I don't care about the fact that the complaints or the concerns were, well, if you just pay attention. Well, if you play fast, I think that's going to solve things. Oh, boom, 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 switch, switch, peek, peek, switch, switch. Are you paying attention? Do you remember what all the symbols are? If you remember all 5 to 7, hey, if you can beat me, I'm okay with that. It's like an advanced game of memory. I love playing memory. One of my kids' favorite games right now, my 4-year-old, soon turned 5-year-old, his favorite game for a while has been Mario Memory. It's got powers, it's got things like that, and I look at this as a sort of a step up, but it's also something I can bring with me. It's portable, they've got a nice case. Is it a little more expensive than I was hoping? Yeah, absolutely. It's about $5-10, including shipping, probably more than I wanted to pay, but I ordered it already, so I'll have some more thoughts and some more details, and I'll throw it in a video in the next coming week or whenever it ends up being delivered. But personally, I'm excited about it, and I think it's a big splash, especially if it sells well, because then you're going to see Riot Games hopefully do something like this again, a little bit out of their comfort zone, because right now, for me, they're hitting a home run with both of these games. So I think that's something to note. The other point, as I've mentioned in another video, is the crossover. What this means is that you might see other video game companies willing to cross over with some of their IPs into the board game world, and maybe even bypass crowdfunding in general, so you're getting it sooner in a splash like this. And I think that is great for our hobby. Say what you want about the rest of it. Say what the quality and the exposure is. I think the goodwill and the exposure to our hobby in general, the more is the better. And so if they do a good job, I think you might start to see other companies sort of want to get in on that market share, because the video game world, even more so than the board game world, is so saturated and the price points are so high that this is untapped potential for them. And I think they've realized this. And if this sells well, I think you'll see more. And I, for one, welcome it. Love it. Number 2. I don't know if you guys pay attention to this, but for a while, I was a very light gamer. I liked not party games, but just things that weren't nearly as depth or deep as what other people may like. I've never been a big Euro guy. I'm never going to be a big Euro guy. I'm not strategic. You've heard me say that in other ones. I like my dice chuckers. But I started looking into a few things, and a few deeper things, a few heavier things, I guess is maybe the better term, have caught my eye. I now own Teotihuacan with the expansion. I own Underwater Cities. So I'm trying to branch ever so slightly out. One thing that has been on my radar are Splotter. They've caught my imagination in the simplicity, but also the interaction and a little bit of the cutthroat, because I really do like Take That. I like screwing over other players at the table. I don't mind getting screwed over. I mean, it's a nice memory to remember. Oh man, remember the time you screwed me over? Remember in Shadows over Camelot when I fooled you guys all, when I was the traitor and no one? Those are the stories that the games tell, and I am a big fan of it from that side of things. So the fact that I have had a few of these on my radar for a while has been not a pipe dream, but just something I've been pursuing interactively. For a while, I've been trying to trade for a copy of the newer reprint of Bus, for example. That one seems right up my alley. The other one that's been on my radar for a while is the Great Zimbabwe. As you may know or may not know, if however familiar you are with it, is that it's been out of print for a while. Unlike a lot of the other ones that have come back in print or they've reprinted in the last 4 or 5 years, whatever that may be, Great Zimbabwe has been out of print. Routinely seeing it on the secondary market, especially eBay, for upwards of $150 to $200, overseas for even more, it seems like. So if you're like me, you subscribe to board game pages and you can get them to notify you if something goes up on eBay or someone puts a new one up in the marketplace. So I've been seeing that for a while, the 150, 175, you can get the eBay notifications doing the same thing on eBay. So, you see them come in, you see them roll in. Well, all of a sudden, last week, a thread popped up in the Great Zimbabwe forums with someone saying, oh, hey, bing, hey guys, Game Nerds all of a sudden has this up for pre-order. And people are like, what? And it was a good price. I think it was like $78 plus something like that, plus tax. And Game Nerd shipping is $75, so boom, right there, free game, free shipping. Wow, sounds too good to be true. So I did it right then. This is a grail game for a lot of people. So what was interesting, and I'll pull up a picture right here in a second, is on the forum, then one of the designers, one of the Splotter guys, commented, hey, they must, because the comments were, Splotter hasn't announced anything, or what's going on? How come these guys have it? No one else has it up for pre-order. So interestingly, a few hours later in the day, the next day, something like that, one of the Splotter guys, I think, basically says, hey, do they know something that we don't know because we haven't done anything with this? And so then all of a sudden people are like, deer in headlights. Whoa, crap. Do I cancel my pre-order? Like, what's going on here? About 24 to 48 hours after that, all of a sudden they announced it. Boom. Official announcement. It's on a couple other websites now, I think, for pre-order as well. But it's kind of interesting how that worked. But anyway, that's something that we were seeing a lot of. And the funny thing was, right after that first thread, but especially after the second thread, all of a sudden, remember that notification that I talked about earlier in the marketplace? All of a sudden, you have all these people listing their Great Zimbabwe copies for sale. And so it's, I understand the phenomenon. At the same time, it still cracks me up every single time that it happens, is people are holding on to these Grail games saying, I'm not willing to get rid of it, or I don't want to do it. All of a sudden the reprint announced and their perceived value of, I've got a copy of this, they throw it on the market. Trying to make a little buck because they don't actually want it sometimes. A lot of these people, I feel like, just want the prestige of owning it. Like, oh, I own a copy of this. That's how I felt initially when I had a copy of the Kickstarter of Blood Rage and the Kickstarter of Rising Sun, and those were the hot things, the hot commodities. For me, it took a while, though, and for me, I ended up selling both of them because it's an opportunity cost. I liked them. It wasn't that I disliked them, but I realized I liked the idea of them better than actually liking them itself. And so for me, I liked the prestige of owning it. And for me, that I'm not a collector. So I got out for both of those. And so it's interesting to see that happen now with the Great Zimbabwe. Similarly, you see it happening with Bruges. I saw a lot of Bruges go up after they announced, just very initially, the Amsterdam, Queen Games, and Hamburg Kickstarter. but you saw it escalate significantly as soon as the campaign actually went live. And again, same phenomenon. All these people are like, I have my $125 copy of Bruges and my $150 copy of City on the Wind. I can get Amsterdam or Amsterdam, Macau. I can get Hamburg now for $100 deluxe with all of those expansions in there, and I'm completely okay with waiting. So the value of your Bruges and City on the Wind just cut in half at least. And you're always going to have people that, especially in a not just a reprint but a redo sort of thing, that are going to want the original. But with the Great Zimbabwe, where it is just a simple reprint, the value of those where it was out of print goes down. And I just think it's interesting how the market all of a sudden changes when those come out. So something to be aware of if you're one of those people that has something that is valued but out of print, that it could always come back in print. So if you're holding on to it just for the value, you need to be aware that that's not always a great investment. It can be, but take it with caution. In more just general retail news, there's been a few updates on a few games from well-known designers with good pedigrees who are putting out new products. You have Vladimir Suchi, I'm messing that name up, but the gentleman behind the mind who created Underwater Cities that I mentioned earlier, his new game, Praga, Caput, Regni. The rules were just released on Board Game Geek in English. Like I said, I am not a heavy gamer. I attempted to read through them to get a sense of all of the moving parts, and it looks really interesting as someone who's not a heavy gamer. But not having the depth of knowledge to get a good understanding of how those parts are going to interact and whether or not they're going to be good mechanisms that go together, or they're just going to be a jumble of things just smooshed together that just kind of do stuff. I can't give you my interpretation of that. So anyone who is more familiar with that, if you want to take a look and let me know what you guys think, I'd be love to hear some thoughts on that. It's been on my radar since I picked up Underwater Cities, and it sounds like that they're sort of ramping things up for more of a retail release, but I don't think there still has been a retail release announced. Along the same lines, you have a couple more games that have more of a retail presence in the near future. The Psychedelic appearing Cosmic Frog game. I thought this was ridiculous. I looked at that picture. It's a total turnoff for me. A couple early reviews just came out of impressions and thoughts, including Space Biff, who probably does the best, most well-written, eloquent, written reviews on the internet. I don't always understand what he's saying, and I don't always tell completely whether or not he liked the game sometimes at the end. But he put a review out there, I believe, as well as a couple other guys, like maybe the guys from So Very Wrong About Games, or one of those very popular, well thought of, well eloquently spoken groups, that they're really positive. So I finally actually looked into it, and actually it looks great. It looks great. The price point, though, because of the frog miniatures and because of the way the game is set up, is, I think it's about $70, $65, $70. It's on pre-order right now. They just updated in the Board Game Geek forums, though, that it looks like delivery for retail is going to be sort of October-ish, maybe end of October. So if it's something that you had on your radar, I think it's worth checking out. I'm very tempted to add it to one of the pre-orders from one of the various websites, but I don't think it's on many sites available right now. I think Miniature Market is sold out. I think there's only one or two others in the US that are pre-ordering it right now. So unless you go through the website, which is going to cost you, the publisher, which, depending on how you feel about that, sporting publisher, cheaper cost, that might be the only place that you can get it in the near future, unless it comes wider at retail that other places just aren't showing that they're going to be getting copies of. So that's something to be aware of. Speaking of things that are already released, it looks like Castles of Tuscany, the sort of successor, sequel, lighter little brother to Castles of Burgandy, is now released in Germany. There's a few people stateside who have gotten copies and have been posting a few of their impressions and thoughts as well. Again, similarly to other games in the line or succession by the same designer, this one being Stephen Feld, you want to be careful in pre-ordering games like this before you know what you're going to get, because I think the initial impressions were, after people read the rules, that, oh, this isn't just Castles of Burgundy Take Two Part 2 taken to the nth level, this is a little bit lighter, a little bit friendlier, a little bit more family friendly, a little bit more random. And a lot of the Feldians were not quite as happy hearing that. Me personally, I'm probably going to check it out at some point. I'd like to play it. I'd like to see more actual gameplay. There really isn't a gameplay video out there right now, but there are people's impressions. There's the rules, so you can get a little bit better feeling. For me, it's definitely going to be something to watch, especially when it comes stateside. The only way you can get it right now is ordering through, I think, one of the German companies. And having done that with a few games, I'd rather not pay the $30 in shipping to get a game that's not much more than that at retail. So for me, it's going to be a wait and see until we get more information and it comes over to the States. But it's definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on. It's on my wish list. I'm subscribed still on Board Game Geek, so we're going to see what comes of that. Lastly, for the news roundup tonight, you're going to see a few other announcements that have come out recently in terms of Kickstarters and dates. You have the new Sadler Brothers game that's going to be coming on to Kickstarter, using their modular deck system, which has been a little bit of a hit and miss depending on who you are. That was with Street Masters, as well as Alder Quest, which is still in the process of fulfilling, and then also Brook City. The new game is got this horror theme. It's called Dire Alliance Horror. It's got some of your classic horror villains on the cover. Not really sure what to make of it. I think it'll definitely be a check it out. I believe it's now scheduled to launch at the end of October, October 27. So if in case you were a fan of any of their previous things, I think it's definitely worth exploring, because you know you're going to be getting your money's worth whether or not you like the game in the first place. They're more like CMON at this point. They've got lots of stretch goals. They're rewarding backers for supporting them. And they seem like nice guys, at least from the interactions I've seen on Board Game Geek. And so it's always worth supporting and giving positive reinforcements to nice guys in this industry. So I am always going to try and check things out that come from them with that sort of pedigree and background. The next announcement that just came out, I think actually even just today, is the sequel. Sandy Petersen has all of a sudden announced on short notice that Return to Planet Apocalypse, or Planet Apocalypse 2, Planet Apocalypse, the Return to Hell, whatever. Return to Planet Apocalypse is the name they went with. They actually had the Board Game Geek forums polled to see if they could come up with clever names before they released it. I don't know if this is actually one of the ones they chose. Maybe it was. I don't follow that closely. It was on my radar. I passed on it the first time. The reviews on it were mostly positive. The Sandy Petersen games, though, it seems that lately that he's got so many in the pipeline that there have been some concerns about, are they doing the dreaded, feared, rumored often in these companies where they've got so many in the pipeline of supporting previous projects with current projects funds. And look, I'm never going to speculate on who's doing what. It does raise the concern when you've got multiple projects unfulfilled, CMON. But it's not necessarily going to scare me away either from that standpoint right away. Now, the big thing why I haven't done any Sandy Petersen games in the past is I'm not, like I've said previously, a huge fan of paying an extra gratis fee for over-the-top size miniatures. There's a way to do it, and there's a way to do it well. One of the games I'm going to be looking at in the future, and it's getting a future expansion, I think even maybe all of a sudden it came out of nowhere again, Jack Dyer. I'd never heard of him before this, but Gatefall, the dueling game, big miniatures. The cost was $39 on Kickstarter, including an expansion plus shipping. And these are some nice miniatures. Not a ton of them, but not your usual size miniatures either. So there's a way to do it, and I don't know. Like, it just seems gratuitous with the Sandy Petersen ones. So I have mixed feelings, but overall, the game got a very positive vibe. You're not seeing a ton of it on the secondary market, but I think it's also a hard product to move because it is more niche in that sense. I don't have a tower defense game like this. I got plenty of dungeon crawlers, and because it's been so positive on the secondary market and the retail market, I don't know how much it's actually selling because the price is significantly higher than it was in the Kickstarter. And there were some Kickstarter exclusives, and so there's a lot of that in these products, and just it's a buyer beware on the secondary market for me. So I'm interested to see. They actually put up the preview page. I'll show a link to it right here. so that you guys can sort of check it out if you want to. It looks like they've got several pledges for returning people. It looks like the pseudo all-in, I don't know if they're it doesn't clear from what's on the page now if they're going to be allowing all of the previous content to be available during this Kickstarter or not, but it looks like the pseudo all-in is looking at about $249 before shipping, which, if you know Sandy Petersen Kickstarters, there's probably going to be a few other surprises thrown in there, extra expansions, but that's not a bad price for his Kickstarters, to be honest. So that one is launching actually the day before all Kickstarter breaks loose. That is launching next Monday on September 21. Sorry for burying the lead there. So that's something else to watch that is going to blow up the Kickstarter scene in addition to all the other ones. I will have a video coming out probably this weekend talking about the other ones that are going to be blowing up your wallet at that point. Speaking of the Jack Dyer one, I'm going to be doing a review on this in the next couple weeks because, man, it's just a solid game. He seems like a solid guy. I didn't know him from, Jack and the Beanstalk, more than a couple months ago. I passed on the Kickstarter. I vaguely remember seeing it when it came up. But what really brought it to my attention was all of a sudden at the beginning of the year or earlier in the year when they do the Board Game Geek nominations of best game and things like that, all of a sudden his fans came out in droves. And people were actually complaining on the Geek List, like, oh, he must be buying votes. He must be, all these people who just created things must be fake. They must be whatever. And he came out and said, look, all I said to my fans was this: if you've got a fan base that's that passionate, you must be doing something right. So I ended up buying a copy from someone who backed and didn't want it anymore. And I've got it and it looks great. It plays great. So I'll give you more thoughts in a separate one, but I have to give a shout out to anyone who is that nice and polite on the internet, especially when people are not being that nice to you in the first place. And then you put out a product like this, because if you have people that passionate about your product, you must be doing something right, like I said. And so he announced I think they're doing single figure expansions just today on Facebook. I saw he interacts with people too. He responded to my question. I was like, hey, Jack, I got a more definite date. He's like, I'll get back to you. Maybe I'll soon. And he is on Board Game Geek. And so, yeah, you got to support that. This is what this industry is made of, and this is the reason we get into this industry. So, what more can I say? That is it. I went way too long with this roundup. I wasn't planning on doing half this time. So if you stuck with me, great. Thank you so much. Have a good middle of September. Have a good weekend this weekend. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the people around you. Play some board games if you want. I'm going to try. Thanks for watching. Stay classy.